2,500 years ago, in what is now Nepal, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama was born into the royal family of the Shakya kingdom. Before his birth, his mother, Queen Maya, dreamed of a radiant white elephant, a sign that her child was destined for greatness. Soon after his birth, a wise sage named Asita visited the palace. He made an extraordinary prophecy. The prince would become either a powerful king or an enlightened teacher who would guide humanity. His father, King Suddhodana, longed for a great ruler. He surrounded his son with luxury, magnificent palaces, beautiful gardens, music, fine silks, every pleasure imaginable. The king ordered that Siddhartha never witness suffering. He was shielded from sickness, from old age, from poverty, from death. The young prince grew known for his intelligence, his kindness, his compassion. He mastered the arts of a prince. He married Princess Yashodhara, and they had a son named Rahula. From the outside, Siddhartha seemed to have everything: wealth, power, a loving family. Yet deep inside, he felt that something was missing. One day, driven by curiosity, Siddhartha asked to leave the palace and explore the world beyond its walls. Despite his father's efforts to hide the hardships of life, something unexpected happened. After leaving the palace for the first time, Siddhartha's understanding of the world began to change forever. On his first journey, he saw an elderly man, frail, bent with age, and struggling to walk. Shocked, Siddhartha asked his charioteer why the man looked this way. The charioteer replied, "He is old, my prince. Everyone who lives will one day grow old." Siddhartha was deeply troubled. He had never imagined that youth could fade. On another journey, he encountered a man suffering from a terrible illness. Weak and in pain, the man could barely move. "What has happened to him?" Siddhartha asked. "He is sick," the charioteer answered. "Illness can affect anyone, regardless of wealth or status." Not long after, Siddhartha came across a funeral procession. He watched as grieving families carried the body of someone who had died. "Will this happen to everyone?" he asked. "Yes, my prince," replied the charioteer. "Death comes to all living beings." The prince was overwhelmed. Everything he had believed about life was beginning to crumble. Then, on his fourth journey, Siddhartha met a wandering ascetic, a man who owned almost nothing, but carried himself with remarkable peace and calm. The ascetic explained that he had left behind worldly possessions in search of truth and freedom from suffering. For the first time, Siddhartha saw someone who seemed genuinely content, despite having no wealth or power. He realized that no palace, no riches, and no throne could protect people from old age, sickness, or death. That night, as his wife Yashodhara and his newborn son Rahula slept peacefully, Siddhartha made the most difficult decision of his life. At the age of 29, he quietly left the palace, his family, and the life he had always known. Riding into the darkness with his loyal horse and charioteer, Siddhartha removed his royal jewels, exchanged his fine clothes for the robes of a wandering seeker, and set out to discover the true cause of human suffering. His journey toward enlightenment had finally begun. Having left behind his life as a prince, Siddhartha devoted himself entirely to finding the truth. He traveled across northern India, studying under some of the greatest spiritual teachers of his time. He quickly mastered their meditation techniques, but despite reaching deep states of concentration, he realized he had not found the lasting freedom he was seeking. Believing that the answer might lie in complete self-denial, Siddhartha joined a group of ascetics. For nearly 6 years, he lived an incredibly harsh life. He ate almost nothing, slept very little, and pushed his body to its limits. His body became so weak that he could barely stand. Yet even after years of extreme suffering, enlightenment remained out of reach. Siddhartha came to an important realization. Neither a life of luxury nor a life of extreme hardship could lead to true wisdom. Instead, he chose what he called the middle way, a path of balance between the two extremes. After accepting a simple meal from a young woman named Sujata, Siddhartha regained his strength and walked to a sacred fig tree, later known as the Bodhi tree. There he made a vow: "I will not rise from this place until I have found the truth." As night fell, Siddhartha sat in deep meditation, unaware that his greatest challenge was about to begin. a powerful force known as Mara, the embodiment of temptation and fear, approached, determined to stop him from attaining enlightenment. The final battle was about to begin. First came terrifying storms. Thunder roared across the sky as fierce winds and rain lashed the earth. But Siddhartha remained calm, his mind unshaken. Next, Mara unleashed an army of fearsome demons. They charged toward Siddhartha with weapons raised, filling the air with chaos and anger. Yet as the weapons reached him, they transformed into flowers, falling harmlessly around him. Unable to break his concentration, Mara tried one final temptation. He sent his daughters to distract Siddhartha with beauty, desire, and promises of pleasure. But Siddhartha saw through the illusion and remained peacefully focused. Finally, Mara challenged his right to seek enlightenment. "Who will bear witness that you deserve this seat?" he demanded. Without speaking, Siddhartha reached down and touched the earth with his right hand. The earth itself became his witness. The ground trembled, and Mara's power vanished. His armies scattered, and the darkness gave way to the light of dawn. As the morning star rose in the sky, Siddhartha attained complete enlightenment. At the age of 35, the prince became the Buddha, meaning the awakened one. He understood the nature of suffering, its cause, and the path that leads to its end. He had discovered a way to free oneself from the endless cycle of suffering. The journey of Prince Siddhartha had ended. The journey of the Buddha had just begun. After attaining enlightenment, the Buddha spent several weeks meditating beneath the Bodhi tree, reflecting on the profound truth he had discovered. At first, he wondered whether anyone could truly understand his teachings. They were deep, subtle, and unlike anything people had heard before. But moved by compassion, the Buddha decided to share what he had learned. He traveled to the deer park at Sarnath, where 5 ascetics who had once practiced with him were living. At first, they refused to greet him, believing he had abandoned the spiritual path. Yet as the Buddha approached, they sensed something extraordinary. His calm presence and wisdom were unlike anything they had ever seen. There, the Buddha delivered his first sermon, known as Setting the Wheel of Dharma in Motion. He taught the 4 noble truths: that suffering exists, that suffering has a cause, that suffering can end, and that there is a path leading to its end. He also introduced the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide to living with wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness. The 5 ascetics became his first disciples, marking the beginning of the Buddhist community, known as the Sangha. Word of the Buddha's teachings spread quickly. People from every background, kings, merchants, farmers, and ordinary villagers, came to hear the man who had discovered the path to enlightenment. The Buddha's mission to help others had begun. For the next 45 years, the Buddha traveled across northern India, teaching anyone willing to listen. He welcomed people from all walks of life, rich and poor, kings and servants, men and women. To the Buddha, a person's wisdom and actions mattered more than their birth or social status. His followers grew into a large community known as the Sangha. Monks and nuns devoted their lives to practicing and sharing his teachings, while many others followed his guidance as lay disciples. Throughout his journey, the Buddha taught compassion, mindfulness, generosity, and the importance of overcoming greed, hatred, and ignorance. He encouraged people to seek understanding through their own experience rather than accepting ideas without question. Many rulers and ordinary people embraced his teachings, helping Buddhism spread throughout the region. As the years passed, the Buddha became one of the most respected spiritual teachers of his time. Now in his 80s, after decades of guiding countless people toward peace and wisdom, he sensed that his life's journey was nearing its end. His final lesson was yet to come. After 45 years of traveling and teaching, the Buddha was now 80 years old. Though his body had grown weak with age, his compassion and wisdom remained as strong as ever. He continued his journey across northern India, giving guidance to monks, nuns, and lay followers wherever he went. He reminded them that all things are impermanent and encouraged them to rely on the Dharma, the truth he had taught, rather than on any one person. On his final journey, the Buddha arrived at the town of Kushinagar. Knowing that his life was drawing to a close, he lay down beneath two sal trees, surrounded by his disciples. His followers gathered around him, filled with sadness. The Buddha comforted them, reminding them that everything that arises must one day pass away. His final words were a call to remain diligent in their practice, and to continue walking the path toward enlightenment. Peacefully, the Buddha entered parinirvana, marking the end of his earthly life at the age of 80. After his passing, his followers honored him with a royal cremation. His sacred relics were divided among different kingdoms, where they were placed in stupas for people to remember and pay their respects. Although the Buddha's life had come to an end, his teachings were only beginning to spread across the world. Although the Buddha had entered parinirvana, his teachings continued to live on through his disciples. They carefully preserved his words and shared them across kingdoms, ensuring that future generations could follow the path he had discovered. Over the centuries, Buddhism spread far beyond its birthplace in India. It reached Sri Lanka, China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Southeast Asia, and eventually many other parts of the world. As Buddhism spread, different traditions developed, each preserving the Buddha's core teachings while adapting to local cultures. Temples, monasteries, and stupas were built, becoming places of learning, meditation, and worship. Today, hundreds of millions of people follow the Buddha's teachings. His message of compassion, mindfulness, wisdom, and the end of suffering continues to inspire people from all walks of life, regardless of their background or beliefs. The story of the Buddha is not one of conquest or wealth, but of a man who gave up everything in search of truth. From a sheltered prince to an enlightened teacher, his journey transformed not only his own life, but the lives of countless others. More than 2,500 years later, his teachings continue to remind us that peace begins within, that compassion has the power to change the world, and that every person has the potential to awaken. The life of the Buddha may have ended, but his legacy continues to guide humanity to this very day. If you enjoyed this journey through the life of the Buddha, like this video and subscribe for more stories of wisdom, peace, and enlightenment.